not on there. We're going to go ahead and start up again if you want to come in and find your seat.
When you introduced him, can you leave the sheet?
Okay, I think we're about ready to get started again. At this point of our program, we're going to move into a panel discussion with our community experts here. I'll go ahead and introduce the panel, and then Nancy will join us momentarily, and she will facilitate our discussion. So if you just want to raise your hand when I say your name. Shayna Buckner is a sexual assault community advocate at Advocates of Osakie, where they work to end domestic and sexual violence through intervention, education, and prevention services. Justin Game is a detective and peer support for the Village of Grafton Police Department, where he has served for 17 years. In his current role, Detective Game investigates major crime cases. He's a member of the Osakie County Drug Task Force and Osakie County Human Trafficking Task Force, among other responsibilities. Jana Hoppy is an advanced practice provider at Children's Wisconsin and the Medical College of Wisconsin. As a pediatric nurse practitioner, she specializes in the care of children who have been or are suspected of having been physically abused, sexually abused, neglected, drug endangered, and trafficked. Dan Knodel is our state representative from Assembly District 24, serving Germantown, Menominee Falls, Lannon, and Butler. Dan is a former small business owner and served in numerous elected roles, including the Washington County Board of Supervisors and in the Wisconsin State Assembly. And then last but not least is Heidi Rowley, is a school psychologist for a local school district. However, she is here in the capacity as being a member of this congregation, a member of the community, and a mother. She has served in her capacity as a school psychologist for 13 years, supporting students and families with various needs, including those affected by trauma. So thank you again to each of you for being here today and for participating in this very important conversation. And now I will hand it over to Nancy, who will guide us through the panel discussion.
She's back. Just when you thought you got rid of me, here she is again. You guys supposed to say, that's a cue to say, we don't want you to go. Let's try it again. Just when you thought you got rid of me, here I am again. That's right. That's right. All right, so what happened when we were putting this together, we were thinking, how can we make this a multidisciplinary approach? I may have answers, but I don't have all the answers. I'm not a police officer. You know, I'm not an elected official as of yet. I'm not a psychiatrist. I work directly with services, but everybody always have their own individual way of doing their things underneath the umbrella in which they're under. So we wanted to make sure that we ask questions from each person that's willing to share and give you kind of their perspective about what I was talking about. If they had ran into a Nancy Yarbrough, and I walked into the police station, or I walked in and tried to get some supportive services, what can they do to be able to help? And then we'll leave some room on the end for you guys to ask any additional questions you have for us. And I failed to mention this beforehand. I brought some letters of love that we actually give to the ladies and men that are still out there struggling on the street, or those that are in spaces and places, that I want to give you guys as an opportunity to see what some people actually write, so that if you decide you want to do a letter or become a part of that monthly letter of love, that you'll know what to put in on your cards or your stationery. Thank you. All right, so we're going to go with the first question. From the perspective of your specific role, how do you contribute to preventing exploitation or to identify it in its early stages when it occurs?
I guess I'll go first. So my role, like I said, I'm a pediatric nurse practitioner. I'm employed by Children's Wisconsin, but I work at a child advocacy center. Children's runs and operates 7 child advocacy centers across Wisconsin, mostly in southeast Wisconsin, and then there are 2 or 3 other satellite sites that are not run by Children's Wisconsin, but we still provide medical exams at. So I don't have personally a direct role in prevention in the typical sense where I'm out, working with the youth. The children that come to see us have to be referred to us either from another healthcare provider or CPS or law enforcement. And when they come to see us, if they're not coming to see us for trafficking, every single teenager, sometimes we start screening at age 11, so adolescents, they get screened for trafficking. We ask very specific questions, and we try to use the common language that the youth would understand. And we try to be a safe place for children who may be trafficked and have not disclosed this yet, and for children that have been trafficked and they come to us for our services. The CAC is kind of a one-stop shop where we provide medical care, but we also provide forensic interviewing so that they can disclose their story or their history in a safe place, and then we also have advocacy there as well. My specific role when it comes to trafficking is their medical care. I do a physical exam. I'm checking them for injuries, signs of infection, and we also do sexually transmitted infection testing and treatment along with pregnancy prevention. And my goal when I see trafficked youth at the CAC is to make the CAC a safe place for them, a place that they'll remember as being a safe place where they can come and be themselves, tell me what they need. And I do this by putting them in control. I have a conversation with them before we even enter the exam room. I let them know that they're in charge of their visit and that my only concern is their safety and well-being. And sometimes when youth come to see us, they don't feel comfortable doing all the things that we can offer, and that's okay. I let them know that I'm there to provide whatever service they need.
Awesome. She has a lot of information, a wealth of information springing over, but because we want to make sure that we give ample opportunity for others to be able to answer, we want to kind of keep it to like a minute and a half, even though we needed all of that to break the ice. And I'm a jotter, so what I jotted down is for sure a safe place, right? They have to feel safe in a space that they don't even know how to disclose. That word is a loaded word for a person that's gone through trauma, that didn't ask to be in your care. They would rather be somewhere else and for you to disclose. And a lot of times we feel like they're telling a lie, right? You just said this, but you said that. And I'm glad that you said at the beginning, I'm giving you control of this. I want you to share as much as possible. And how I empower people with a word is I want to share with you guys, because we tend to say story a lot. And I took that out because that implies you can say anything you want. A story is something that's told in a way that brings people into a place where it either is fragmented or it is very controversial. But if I tell you my journey, as much as I can remember when you ask me. So I just kind of empower people to say, hey, listen, ask the person about their journey. How far have they come and where they are right now in it? Because a story means I really have to come up with something that might be pleasing to your ears, and I'm going to get confused about what I say. So thank you so much for sharing that, a safe place that they can be who they are. Did you want to share on that one or the next question? Guys, want to go to the next question? Okay, sure.
Sorry, can I share something quickly just from the prevention perspective?
You can.
I'm a school psychologist, and I believe that schools have a huge role in prevention. And that's why I wanted to answer this question. And I think what a lot of people don't maybe know is that a school's ability to educate kids around some of these super important skills has been very much limited in the last decade or so in lots of communities, including communities here. And so if you, like me, are looking for some next steps after this kind of discussion and learning, I really encourage you to reach out to your local school systems. For example, in Cedarburg Schools, the social-emotional learning curriculum that specifically teaches problem-solving skills, self-advocacy, boundaries, all of that has been removed from the public school curriculum. The other thing I encourage you to look into is sexuality education. Unfortunately, many school districts have gone to a shame and purity-based sexuality curriculum. So for example, there's teachings that if, for example, the workbook has a picture and it says, premarital sex is like pre-chewed chewing gum. Is that what you want to present to your husband? So to me, it is unconscionable that there are children in classrooms who have been victimized who are hearing these messages. Another activity has a rose being passed around, and everybody takes off a petal. And then nobody wants the rose at the end because it's not beautiful anymore. And an analogy is made to multiple sexual partners. This is happening here and now in our local school districts. So I just really encourage you to reach out, see it for yourself, educate yourselves, and get in touch with school boards.
That's very good, very good. But, okay, so let's tease that out a little bit. We know that in a confined space, just like she said, a lot of times it's taboo to talk about things that we should be talking about at home. It goes right back to what I said before. If you're not having a courageous conversation about things that your children are encountering, they'll get one-sided message. Then the other message to choose from would be how the world presents it with, if you're not having sex, then you're not, doing right. I say anytime that you introduce one, introduce the other one. If you introduce how to have safe sex, introduce abstinence too. Give them a choice that they don't have to have sex, but if you're going to have it safely. But also, what is it wrapped around? Socially emotional development. Once you enter into that step, it's more than just giving yourself to someone else. That soul tie is now. Let me be quiet because I think that that's the bigger part of what we don't talk about and how our youth end up getting so involved in these sexual encounters and these relationships way too early than their brain development can even understand. What do I look like having a boyfriend or a girlfriend or a girlfriend and a girlfriend or any of these things without having a teased out conversation at home where the foundation should really be? And if you don't know, like she said, ask people. There's a program that actually goes right inside the school districts now called Love 146, Not a Number training. I'm a trained facilitator in that. Are you too? Okay. So that actually talks about it in a way that gives it to our children at the basis of where they need it at, so they don't feel discarded, so they don't feel like a waste, so they don't feel like if their choice was taken from them, that they're nothing, or the discarded rose, or chewed up bubble gum, or whatever the case may be. It gives them an opportunity to talk about consent in a way that says, if I said yes today, I don't have to say it tomorrow. If I said yes 4 hours ago and you come to me and I say no now, it still means that I don't have to. All of those things are conversation that should be had, because once you tell somebody, yes, I will do this for you because I love you, and you tell them no the next day, then I thought you said you love me. That's manipulation. So we want to make sure that we're educating our children around programs that are accredited, which is Love 146, Ending the Game, like I talked to you guys about before, and Expect Respect. And I am a trained facilitator in all of those. The next question goes, in your field, what is one common misconception about exploitation that you regularly encounter, and how does it affect prevention, reporting, or response?
I was excited about this question. So a common misconception I see is that once somebody somebody's trafficker or abuser is out of the picture or not here anymore. I'll give you a quick example. Early on, when I started at Advocates, I had a trafficking survivor that had gone from Milwaukee to Ozaukee County, and her abuser actually died in a car accident. And mom's first words, family's first words were, "Yay, you're better now." And this created a huge deficit with this person, made them feel more defective because there is complicated grief, right? That was somebody that accepted her, and life didn't go back to normal right away for her. Survivors are still navigating trauma, safety planning, housing, finances, legal systems, rebuilding trust. And also one thing that I wanted to add was, it says we are an expert panel, but they are the experts. Survivors are experts of their own experiences, and just like I learned from that client, I am continuously learning.
We have to clap it up or snap it up or raise it up for them being vulnerable to share their experience. That's what I do with our youth all the time. Clap it up, snap it up, raise it up, because we want you to know that you're valued for what you're putting on the table today. So we definitely appreciate that. That complicated grief that you talked about, it's almost like a death that ends up happening between that person that you're saying they no longer can talk to anymore, or you feel like a traitor, you feel like you did them wrong, you're a snitch, and all those kind of things that it's already been embedded in that person. Again, remove them and put ourselves there. When you broke up with somebody and they still wanted to talk with you, but you knew why you broke up with them, and they kind of gaslight you to get you to talk back to them, whether it's family or friends or any of those things. Just imagine that is the same type of relational kind of thing that ends up happening from the separation of a trafficker and their person that they think is a commodity, a product instead of a person. And they wield in that will to say, what are you going to do without me? I love you. I'll kill myself, suicidal thoughts. And it feels like something inside of you died, right? Even though that guy was so mean to me, it's certain things that come on right now. I can remember some of our favorite commercials together. Because again, that's memories, right? So you kind of tend to want to remember some things that were pleasant and not all the worst things, but it's still a kind of a death or a grief. Anybody else want to answer that question?
So my answer to this question will kind of go back to the first question, but the biggest misconception that I've run into regarding this issue, especially exploitation, is that it doesn't happen here. When we get a case, we are met with families that are shocked and awed that this is happening in Ozaukee County. I-43 is a main thoroughway that runs right through our county. It's a main highway, literally and figuratively, from Chicago, Milwaukee, Green Bay, and then west to Minnesota. That's one large area where we're seeing that kind of come through our county. Going back to the first question, though, with prevention, it kind of goes hand in hand, is to Heidi's point, with the schools maybe not doing as well as maybe they could with sex education, parents now become paramount in being the last line of defense for our children. And that comes with having knowledge of not just parenting, a child, but knowledge of technology, knowledge of what devices are in their hands, what apps they're using. And there are ways to safeguard homes and apps and messages and text conversations that our children are having. We just have to get that information out. So the police side tries to share that information, not just with children, with families, to give them resources to protect them kids, so they're not first seeing us at the PD when something bad has happened, but they can take measures to prevent and protect their children at the forefront.
Awesome. You want to answer that one too? Okay.
Yeah, well, as a lawmaker or a legislator, I'm not working in this particular field at any moment in time. It's one of the many thousands of issues that come forward. So that's the key, is that these issues are brought to our attention, and that's really up to you, people like Nancy, that come forward to us and identify these problems with us. In grooming and trafficking, we've gotten, just recently, we've got a number of bills working right now. And the initially was the surprise is we don't have any grooming laws. So law enforcement is left with, we've had some prosecutions just for disorderly conduct because we don't have any laws that go to the specifics. So first we have to define what the issue is, what is grooming, what's human trafficking, and then try to create some laws that will be productive towards the elimination of those bad behaviors. So a very different position than the rest of these professionals that are in, and it's constantly evolving. That's why laws continually are changing and new laws come forward. So I'd be glad. I've got too much here to talk to you about individually or as a panel with the bills that are working right now, but we are addressing these issues. And ultimately, it comes to having these advocates and professionals come forward to help us create the law and then testify, come to Madison. We need people who have been involved in these issues to come and tell us their story, because that's the most effective in creating good law, is to hear people's individual stories and how that issue has affected them. And that's a pretty big challenge for individuals to come forward to go to the Capitol building and sit in front of a committee and testify. But yet if they just tell us their story, just the truthful story, that is the best testimony we could ever get. And it'll give us the best opportunity to create good law. But we're always playing catch up. We're always playing catch up, especially in the current world of technology. We'll pass a law tomorrow, and the technology has already moved on, and we've got to pass a new law. So, but without your input, we won't get anything accomplished. So we can take that out. I need your input.
So when Dan was talking about the Senate bill, and we have one that's on the floor, that's been on the floor, that keeps dying on the floor. It is Assembly Bill 79, but it is also Assembly Bill 79, but it's a Senate Bill 73, and it's Safe Harbor Law. And we've been trying to get that passed for years, and I've spoke at the Capitol so many times in regards to my own account with other young ladies that I can bring with me, and then also our Fresh Start Learning and other people that are doing this work. But we wanted to be able to say the fact that, yeah, we can talk about it being passed, but one thing that always ends up happening is somebody else saying, then why don't you just make it legal? Well, you can't go against a bill that's already in play, when you can't have sex under the age of 18 for anything of exchange of value. And he's absolutely correct. You can't charge somebody about a grooming part of it, but we find things that are chargeable, right? So we have to take it back a notch and stop trying to arrest the victim and arrest the John that's buying. So if we arrest the John that's buying, then he'll, or give him some kind of penalty or her some kind of penalty versus slapping him on the hand and the person that's doing it get arrested, but the bill is not being passed to keep them safe when there should be one, and this should just fly right through. Why doesn't it? So I encourage you all, too, to talk to your local senators and your local legislators and tell them, pass that Senate bill or the Safe Harbor Law, because it doesn't take away the criminality part of anything. If they harm someone or hurt someone, you still have to be punishable by law for that charge. But it does give them access to more resources and being able to get mental health issues taken care of in alcohol or drug treatment issues taken care of versus penalizing them and putting them in jail. So I'm glad you brought that up. It is Assembly Bill 79 and Senate Bill 73. We have another question. The question is, what warning signs or red flags are most relevant to your role that parents, guardians, educators, or church leaders should watch for? You want me to call you guys? I'll just call you guys. What do you think that we should be talking to people like we're talking to today? What is one of the biggest things that you can give as a takeaway from them in your own respective roles? One takeaway from law enforcement, one takeaway from a psychiatrist, one takeaway from the person in direct services.
I'll go. Warning signs could be, this is the warning signs questions. Warning signs can be quite subtle. Look for people who are isolating, quick changes in behavior and routines, with youth, especially changes in online behavior. Justin was talking about apps that can monitor. I believe the Bark app is still one that people use a lot, but there are a lot of other apps, and you're not constantly breathing down their neck, but it is like flagging things if you are talking about sex, drugs, older adults, things like that.
Yep, absolutely.
I would say in the schools, isolation is a big red flag for sure. Changes. You know, at their best, schools are a place where all kids feel like they belong. Schools are certainly not perfect, but in my experience, most people at schools really are looking to develop relationships with kids and to make schools be a safe place for kids, so that there is somebody there that hopefully a child could or a student could disclose to or reach out to. The other population that we, you know, that could be especially vulnerable. Unfortunately, the LGBTQIA community, there continue to be kids who are not necessarily loved or accepted for who God made them to be in their families or in their churches, and so that population can certainly be more vulnerable as well.
Thank you.
To kind of add on to what these two ladies were saying here, again, knowledge being a basis for every parent is vital to achieve what both Shanna and Heidi were saying. And that again goes back to knowledge of what children have access to. I think back of when I was 13, 12, and what it was like for my parents. There were no smartphones. It was a single phone line, dial-up internet. Parenting was probably a lot easier then than it is now. Parenting now is, and I am one, so I'm experiencing it full hand, it is hard to do because you're behind the 8 ball with everything, and it's hard to stay up with things, but parents need to be super parents now to stay up with all the knowledge and technology, and that's hard to do, but it's vital to do that, and that will lead to parents observing changes and differences in their children. Staying connected with their children is important, it's vital, it never should stop. And when that is in place, parents are best suited to note differences and can proactively step in before something tragic occurs, either online or physically to a child. So knowledge, again, it's a broken record, but knowledge is absolute power, especially in these times.
Absolutely. There is a slide that we didn't get a chance to go into that's part of a curriculum that talks about red flags, green flags, and yellow flags. And we did that purposefully because we wanted to make sure that you understood that when we are talking about prevention, we want to make sure we're talking about those green flags with our children when they're naive and innocent and unlearned and open and accepting things and searching and seeking and for belonging and being very vulnerable. Those yellow flags end up happening when there's cautionary tales, right? I've been heartbroken, somebody lied to me, I've been hurt, traumas happen, I've seen it, it's happening in my home, or I'm seeing it from people that I know, vicarious trauma kicks in. There's a lot of entry points that ends up happening, willing to give it another chance because that's what I've seen inside of my household. I see my parents argue. It must be good to argue. This is how I get my point across because I yell and scream. But then we talk about red flags. And we used to say red flags was the one that now we have to spring into action. But we want to make sure that our youth are already ready, as well as our parents and community leaders. When red flags happen, I start to think before I do because I recognize all these things beforehand. That is part of that another training that we offer in regards to having those courageous conversations with your children because, again, it is hard. You know, how do you have a conversation with your child that you really don't want to have sexual encounters or now learning how to masturbate or learning how to use other tools or petting each other and everything that is said about that is actually on a training mechanism that I used to use that I have to hand out. And I used to tell people, before I give this to you, I don't believe everything that's on here and I don't teach this in my home, but I want you to know that from the age of 3 on down to 18, every line actually had masturbation as part of the human experience or exploration. And I used to always tell people that that masturbation is the sole purpose of an orgasm. It's not for exploration. If your child looks down and sees its penis or vagina there and they look and grab, that's exploring. But when they manipulate it to the point of ejaculation, then that's something different that you need to talk about. And sometimes we don't have those conversations. So if I did it and somebody taught me, the entry road is a lot easier for somebody else to do it too, because now something's in me that woke up that wants to feel that same pleasurable experience again. And we don't have to minimize it, and we don't have to make them feel shame, because your body is to be experienced in ways and when it's ready for it. But talk about the mental thing that ends up happening once you start opening up those avenues of sexual encounters and behaviors and behavioral patterns. So I'm glad that you said that. As a parent, I had to go through that with my 5 children that are all adults, and they've went through some things. As much as I tried to helicopter, as much knowledge as I had, they still went through a lot of unnecessary things, I thought, but it was very necessary for them. I just walked with them along the way so they didn't feel like they were alone in it. Okay, we have another question. In your system or field, where do you most often see gaps or breakdowns in responding to exploitation, and what would strengthen those responses? Talk about how the law can strengthen it, because you said it, and you can go again if you like, and then we can go straight down the line.
Okay. Well, we can write a lot of laws, and then we can wash our hands of the issue once the law is in place. Well, we've done our job, but that's not the end of the story. So we have to follow through and see, well, has that law been effective? Is it going to have to be changed? And initially, again, it goes back to people coming forward, telling us what the issues are in their life or in their community, and in this case, around the state. So we do make efforts to go out, this human trafficking and grooming issues that we're dealing with now, that we did go around the state with committees and have called a task force meetings, and where the public can come in and talk to us. And I just to encourage you to reach out to your elected officials and talk to them. And you have to keep talking, and you got to be loud, because squeaky wheels do get the grease. And these are difficult subjects. And you don't have the advocacy that the big corporations might have. They've got fleets of lobbyists and things like that, which are pouring through the Capitol all the time. But there's no better person to hear from than your own constituent. And it's quite shocking to me, after 17 years even, how few constituents I hear from. And if their constituent shows up in Madison and I'm there, well, they're going to be welcomed in, and the lobbyists will be welcomed out, because that's the person that I need to talk to, is the constituent that sent me there. But it's really surprising how few people we hear from, other than those that are in the business and get paid to lobbyists continually.
Because that's how it's systemically set up a lot of times. If you have a brave person like yourself that's saying, hey, I want you to come I have a swinging door for you. But a lot of times they get in those seats and they forget that the people put them there, and it's almost like a Hollywood experience. Have your people call my people and I'll get back with you. How do I know? Because I'm always at somebody's door saying something about something that's happening in our community that we need to talk about. Having those courageous conversations and bringing it to the table, at our homes, but also to your offices. And a lot of times they forget the fact that, and it's not to say anything dismissive on your office, especially not yours, but other people's office. You work for us. We don't work for you. You're supposed to be our voice that's at the Capitol saying the issues that are happening in our communities. You're supposed to be bringing that to the table for us. And a lot of times that doesn't happen. A lot of times that disconnect happens because people really don't know that they can show up at those public meetings, the open meetings. They don't really know that they have a voice for that. And I think if a lot of more elected officials talked about the fact that we do have a voice and be able to come and be able to be offered to come, a lot more people probably would show up. And that is from my organizing days back at 9 to 5, because I was door knocking and telling people that you are the voice of your community. Don't expect them to come out of their office to come see you and say, hey, I'm going to fix that pothole in your street, or that drug house next to you, or all the things that are happening. They don't know that from their office. You have to be able to organize and come to the office and let them know what's happening and stay at that door knocking. So you're absolutely correct. You can.
Yeah, I'm just going to not disagree, but actually a good elected representative should come to your house or to your community.
But they don't.
And so in my particular case, I want to be here, not in Madison. I only need to be in Madison when I've got to be meetings and voting and things like that. But there's no better place than in your district as an elected representative to go meet with people where they live. And then they can put it right on the table for you. This is the issue, and it's facing me and my neighbors.
Yep.
So you have to hold those elected people accountable to come see. I think most would rather visit with you in your home.
Yep, absolutely. So we are definitely not disagreeing because that's exactly what I said. So we want to make sure that we are able to have access and make sure that you come out and make sure that it's just not around election time again. I don't know you well enough to know what you do, but I can see that you showed up here today. So apparently you are a man of your word. So we certainly appreciate you showing up because a lot of people don't, right? All right. Did you want to answer this?
Could I say something very quickly? I just, you talk about gaps and breakdowns, and I think, unfortunately, for people who don't feel safe or seen or valued in our society and in our systems, either because of gender or race or sexuality or immigration status, you are not going to be as likely to seek out the resources that we work so hard to make available. And just the way things are right now, I have very grave concerns about specifically our immigrant community and the gaps and what might be happening to people who are too scared to seek the resources that we work hard to make available.
Awesome.
Could I just add a few things? I see two gaps working at the CAC. One gap is education prevention, specifically sexual abuse education prevention. There is a very specific law, Aaron's Law, that Wisconsin has not passed. It's one of the few states in the country that brings sexual abuse prevention into schools in a developmentally appropriate manner. This gives children words and words to disclose if something is happening to them, gives them a safe place. So that I feel like is a big gap. And then also on the flip side, when trafficking and abuse has occurred, there's a real lack of mental health services to assist these children process what has happened to them. Yes, there are lots of agencies, there are lots of therapists, but there are even less therapists who are specifically trained in trauma and abuse of children. And you know, many of these kids that we see, they spend months on a wait list waiting to see a trauma-informed therapist.
Yep, absolutely. That's the truth right there for sure. The more that this is uncovered and the more that we don't compartmentalize it into just one cookie-cutter kind of approach, the more that we see we need more services that are specialized, because we talk about this being a very in-depth trauma and it has multiple layers to it, you know, so we know that you can't just go and just talk about one thing, because there's so many other things that made you stay, that made you get in, all the traumas that you need to deal with. And then the mental health aspect of it, and I'm just going to speak about in the Black and brown community, a lot of times the last thing that we are said to do is go to a therapist. We don't go to therapists. That's not really true, but that's the running joke. Like, we don't go to therapists. And then if we're in church, we say, take it to God. Yeah, God is all-powerful, all-knowing, all-seeing God, and he does hear our prayers. But what if we don't believe that he hears us? We need a tangible person that he utilizes to be able to help. So I want you guys to be very well informed. If you are working with or know of a lot of people that don't or cast off therapy, tell them the very reasons why they should. You know, give it a try. Don't knock it till you try it kind of things. But the barrier with that a lot of times too is not free, and the wait lists are so long, and I need immediate response right away because I'm having an episode right now. That's why we have advocates, and advocates that are in places like law enforcement. When they pick somebody up, they'll call an advocate, a trained advocate, so they can come in and have those conversations because they have a job to do. The sympathy part about me just catching you with a Glock and 10 pounds of dope, and you were in a hotel room and you abused the person you were laying with, I'm not going to be like, you poor baby. I'm going to say, put your hands behind your back. But that advocate can come and say, hey, listen, how did you get here? Who were you with? That kind of thing. And then they get to your place and you're going, hey, we're here for you. It is, about you right now. We have to go over some things. And then they sit in the psychologist's chair and they talk about all the things that they can help them bring out. It takes a multidisciplinary approach. It's not just one person, it's all of us in the community to be able to help to surround that person. It does really take a village when somebody is pulled into exploitation. We are 2 minutes outside of our time. If you guys have one positive thing down the line that you want to leave with everyone before we open it up for questions.
I'll go. Just wanted to make sure that you all know what you can do amongst everything we've said, but just want to emphasize that healing is not linear, and we have to meet survivors where they are. It sometimes takes cycles. The most important thing you can do is be patient and not assume that you know what's best for people. Make sure that they know that they have a place to go when they are ready and that you have resources and connections, but that they are in control of the process.
Absolutely. Anybody else? Actually, I want all of you guys to leave something positive with the people that came out to hear us today. One thing positive you want them to walk away with from your heart.
I just want to say thank you for coming out. This is a hard subject to talk about, and it's our responsibility as the adults in the room to protect the children of our community. And I'm just so grateful to see so many people here who wanted to learn more and can hopefully help going forward. I think that's just wonderful.
Well, it's certainly positive that we're addressing these issues because people have spoke up and have come out. So I must have 10 bills that are in the works right now between grooming and human trafficking. So that's a positive. The people have spoken, and we've got to address these things.
To kind of piggyback off what everybody had said up here already, there are ways, obviously, to keep our kids safe. There are ways to counteract the apps and technology that's out there. It's just a matter of getting that word out. It does exist. I know this is it's a heavy, serious topic, but if we don't talk about it, it will never be fully addressed, rectified, fixed, and it will just continue to grow. So the positive thing is there are ways to combat offenders, predators from getting access to our children. It just questions have to be asked. There are answers. We just have to do better to get that information out there and let parents know that there are ways that they can do it inside the home to protect their children. So there are ways. So it's not a humdrum. There are ways to do this. So if you ask your local law enforcement, they can direct you or me. I can give you some resources, but they are out there. Just have to ask, and they're there.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And my positive would be, first of all, that all of you were here, so thank you. And also, I think a church is a perfect place to be having this conversation. So huge appreciation to Joanne Steininger and the mission team here at Crossroads and to the leadership here at Crossroads. It fills my heart to see our church used for this kind of important conversation. So thank you all. And Nancy, I can't thank you enough for being here and for your leadership for this. And then finally, I would just say we really can do things. We can all contact our school board, contact our state representatives. There are steps that we can take and things that we can do that will make a difference.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. There's a lot of different issues that we can talk about, and we should want to have topics. Talk to Joanne about some things that maybe you want to unpack a little bit more about AI and deepfakes and social media, vlogging and all the kind of things that's entering into our children's lives right now. This was just a tip of the iceberg, and I thank you guys for coming. I thank you guys for pouring in the wealth of knowledge that you have and for showing up. The floor for questions. Is that what we're doing now? Okay. Anyone have questions? Okay. I'm going to run the mic.
All right, yes. And we'll be sure and speak into the microphone so everyone can hear you.
Okay. I was wondering about the bills that you're trying to pass through the House and the Assembly. Is there does money come to help enforce that bill?
This money.
Okay, what I'm asking is, you're talking about the bills, and they're always to help other people, but you need money and support behind that. Does the bill, when you pass it, have it? I don't know if I'm making myself clear.
Oh, well, an appropriation or some, yeah, there's, many do, so that we'll have to put dollars behind it, if that's what you're saying. So, yeah, not all bills, they can just be some policy bills, but most or many will have an appropriation or at least an initial dollar amount attached to them. Sure, to initiate something, or when something's up and running, then and that's the budget cycle every 2 years, which is the biggest bill that we do. Every 2 years is the budget. And then those are continuing appropriations that we make, or continue. Fortunately, we're not the federal government, who can't get that done. But here at the state of Wisconsin, we're actually very good about that.
And then on a local level, there is like the community grant block development money that actually comes out of the local municipalities about issues that are on the floor and that have passed and need some push and needs boots on the ground. That's where a lot of our nonprofits end up getting their money from. It's some of those, not philanthropies, but right from the local municipalities and their community grant block development money like that as well. So there are ways in which we can continue the conversation after the bill is passed. Any other questions?
Thank you, everyone, for your involvement, and Nancy for talking today. And a couple questions is, one is, what about the easily or often forgotten special populations of people with disabilities in trafficking? I know there's other special populations that are easily addressed in our societal concerns nowadays, but I work with people with disabilities, and I'm always listening for who's bringing up people with disabilities, people with autism, cognitive disabilities, etc. And then the other question I have, I think on the front lines too, and Dan, what's going on with the issue of abortion coercive, whether it's in a clinic or with the abortion pill, when there's human trafficking, the sex trafficker, there's a woman or girl who's pregnant, and the abortion pill, as we know, through the mail order nowadays, it's so much easier to slip on, and that's an easy way for perpetrators to cover their tracks. I know those are pretty hot topics, but that does happen, and so if you could please address that as well, and thank you so much.
The first one that you addressed, I'm sorry for my seat. The first one that you addressed in regards to cognitive disabilities and behavioral patterns, we do actually talk about that a lot. Again, we were talking about just the iceberg of talking about things that end up happening. We do know and realize that a lot of the ACEs are actually with some of the young ladies and young men that are pulled in easily because they don't have the ability to understand what's happening to them. So we do have specialized curriculum that actually addresses that and being able to see the warning signs and which ends up happening. You're correct, we had a whole, before she retired, she created, now she's gonna kill me because I can't think of what she created. It's the law around people with disabilities, but she's retired now. Her name was Rachel Monica Wilcox. And she really stepped forward to talk about people with disabilities and wheelchair accessibilities, cognitive delays, nonverbal, autistic, and all those kinds of children that were being misused by people in home care, foster care, or at home that could not express. So absolutely, you're absolutely correct. So again, we do address it as much as possible. And to that other question?
Yeah, I just want to touch on the disability issue. Wisconsin, really in two areas, disabilities and veterans benefits, lead the country. Lead the country in benefits in those two areas. Constituents I know personally that take care of their family with disabilities. They'd love to move to a warmer climate, but the warmer climate states do not have the kind of benefit system that the state of Wisconsin has for those with disabilities. So we really, really do well there. There's always asks to do more, and those are the things that we debate and discuss. But in those areas, veterans benefits is other, that Wisconsin is right at the top.
I know you spoke about something about the abortion and wanting to make sure that those people, the people that are raped, the people that are innocent, the people that ends up in trafficking and end up getting pregnant, sometimes that is a hot commodity for our trafficker. He wants to impregnate the young lady, so then there's a deeper tie into it, so they don't even seek to try to get an abortion. It becomes more of a healthier family for them in the mindset. As far as anything else goes legally about that, I couldn't speak to it, but I wanted to lend that to you and let you know that a lot of times when they're impregnating these young ladies, they're doing it on purpose for that various reasons, because they put them right back into rotation for the appetite of the person that has an appetite for little kids. Unfortunately, the conversation is a little gross, but it is really real. They have appetite for little kids, and then that's the other thing that they do, keep control over the fact that now we have a baby together too.
And thank you. When I was bringing up about disabilities, and it's like it's often hidden or not spoken about as much, I wasn't speaking to your organization or some laws in the state. I'm just talking sometimes in, panelists or conversations in the public, or what we see are hot button issues. It's often people with disabilities. So thank you for all of your efforts in that area. And I recognize that there are issues where there's the impregnation and the wanting to have that, but I'm just speaking about when there is a pregnancy and the perpetrator does not want the pregnancy to come to full term, the baby to be born. What about those coercive abortions that do happen? Is there a law protecting women and girls from that, or if there's a perpetrator that does that and going through due process and investigation and so forth, is there any law in the books to protect the unborn child and the girl and the woman in those cases? Thank you.
Oh, well, I'd be happy to discuss it with you further. The abortion, as far as just overall, right now, abortion is legal up to 20 weeks. And that's state Supreme Court decision. And then other areas we're trying to address, pregnancy resource centers is where I have a personal interest in directing more funds. And so that's providing support throughout the pregnancy. And then we have other legislation going for post-traumatic type issues. So I don't know if that lands on the specifics that you're addressing, but I think we need to discuss that.
Yes,
separately from this forum.
Yeah, that's definitely a loaded one for what you just said. That's a whole topic that we need to, to unpack quite a bit, because it comes with decision, right? It comes with the fear of doing it. It comes with that person saying, if you do this, what will end up happening? So there's so many different reasons that ends up where that person won't, automatically go in and dispose of the child or get an abortion or say, I would rather have it and give it to an adoptive family, and all those decisions. That's a whole conversation that probably we would never know the answer to unless somebody else was gone through that, actually come and tell us that this is the reason behind it. I can only speak for myself. When I got pregnant, when I was out in the street, my mom made me have an abortion. I didn't get a choice about it. She said I was too young to have a child. But when I ended up getting pregnant again with my oldest child's dad, I hid it from her. So when she took me to get an abortion, they told me I was too far along and they wouldn't do it. But that is why my firstborn child was born, because I hid it from her, because I didn't really understand the fact of being pregnant, but I certainly didn't like laying on that table and feeling what I felt that day. And she took my choice away from me. So I don't know, it's too many different situations for us to do that. Anything we talk about today is definitely not cookie cutter. It's all kind of variables that ends up happening behind it. But thank you for being courageous, for putting that conversation on the floor.
And I'd just like to say, too, as a school psychologist, I work a lot with families with disabilities, and I was remiss in not including students with disabilities in populations that are more vulnerable, so thank you very much. In my experience, it's a struggle for parents, and it is one of the greatest stressors for parents of kids with disabilities as they move into middle school and into high school and adolescence. Through the schools, I will say we can connect parents with each other, but schools struggle to meet that need, so it really is about medical providers and community resources. But thank you for bringing up that question, because that is definitely a population that is overrepresented in people who are exploited or victimized.
Thank you very much. Thank you guys so very much. We don't have any other questions. We have about 3 minutes.
I wouldn't say there's a, is it still working? I wouldn't say there's a single source, there's a difference. So trafficking and exploitation are kind of two areas that we focus on. The exploitation side, from my experience, that's all now for the most part, recently for us, online. Through online, Instagram is a big one, Snapchat, through sharing of explicit images leading to demands for money. And it's usually somebody that's from out of the country. Exploitation phase.
Yep.
Trafficking, a specific cause or a source, that can be, I mean, to Nancy speaking earlier, that can be from several areas. There's not one single source to say, this is the cause or this is where it's coming from. It changes all the time in my experience. It's still changing, it's gonna change. Knowledge of those two topics is going to be what's going to be the most beneficial to maybe not prevent, but intercept, interject, and stop before it gets further.
Yep.
So that doesn't really give you a black and white answer. There's really not a black and white answer to that question, but that's probably the best that I can answer it based off of my knowledge that I have, my experience to this point. Does that help? Okay.
Yep. We always just say one less. If we can educate one person and it causes them not to be able to go into the life or come out of it, we're doing our job. There are some specific things that's end up happening around Kenosha. 20 arrests for a federal human trafficking case was in November 2025. In Franklin, there was a human trafficking ring linked to at least 24 victims in December 2025. In Milwaukee, long-term sex trafficking operation from 2024. In ongoing cases in Milwaukee, trafficking and abusing people in private residence. So there's so many different cases that end up happening where if you do some research, you'll see where it's at. But one thing I wanted to say, and I do want to read this verbatim and then we can close. Trafficking happens in suburbs and faith-oriented communities, not just in the media portrays or the big cities or distant regions. Victims are often covered and coerced and manipulated and controlled psychologically and financially, just as physically, which makes awareness harder but more essential. Exploitation can happen in places and venues and contexts that community members assume that are safe. So just to add to that question of yours, it happens anywhere and everywhere. Like that list I listed that's unexhausted, it can happen labor-wise, organ donor-wise, and it can happen sexually, but it is happening. And if we can be able to have these courageous conversations and make sure that somebody knows, then we're doing our job and make it one less. Thank you guys for coming out today. Let me get my butterfly.
So again, I just want to say thank you, great appreciation to Nancy and for our panel speakers, for Shayna and Justin and Jana and Dan and Heidi for being here and sharing your experiences and your journey so far. And thank you to each of you for being here, for caring, for being open to these courageous conversations, to be willing to listen deeper, and potentially to take some next steps. Of course, we have Nancy as a resource, we have community resources here, and the folks that we've met today, and I'm sure they can point you in other directions for more information. You have your state legislator representative here who says he likes constituents to come and visit him and talk to him. So here's your open door right here where he can advocate for folks in your community. Oh, yes. Okay, are they out on the table?
No, they have them in their pews.
Oh, there are evaluations in your pews if you'll take time to fill those out as well. But I just encourage you to keep learning and educating within your sphere of awareness and your sphere of influence. I know this feels like an overwhelming topic, but if we keep taking steps, gradual steps, and we can begin to educate others, and that we can continue to advocate for the vulnerable that are here in our community. So thank you for coming. Nancy is also available if you'd like to ask her more or to purchase one of her books. She has a table set out in the narthex area as well. So again, thank you so much for coming and for being a part of this important conversation.